Senator from Connecticut.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, America has 600 billionaires. Now, $1 billion doesn't sound like a lot of money these days. President Trump just signed a bill begrudgingly that has $900 billion in it. But trust me, $1 billion is still a whole lot of money. It's actually so much money that it's really hard to find words to describe what it looks like. But let me try. If you're, for instance, one of the 500,000 Americans who makes the minimum wage in this nation, and you're lucky enough to work 40 hours a week, guess how many years you would have to work in order to get $1 billion? 500 years? 1,000 years? 10,000 years? No, you're not even close. If you make minimum wage in America today, you would need to work for 75,000 years in order to make $1 billion. 75,000 years. Neanderthals were roaming the earth 75,000 years ago. Those guys, if they made minimum wage, would have to work up until present day, every single day. And that is, of course, if they didn't spend a dime of the money they made in order to accrue $1 billion. $1 billion is a bananas amount of money. And there are 600 people in America today who make at least that amount of money or have that amount of money to their name. That's crazy. With $1 billion, you are leading a life that, frankly, none of us can really imagine, right? You've got private planes, you've got yachts, you've got household staffs in the dozens. You've got enough money to make sure that your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and your great-great-grandchildren never have to work a day of their lives. Generations of your offspring can just live lives of indolent luxury without a care if they so choose. You know where I was 2 days before Thanksgiving this year? I was at Hamden Middle School in my state to help hand out free food for the unemployed, the poor, and the disabled ahead of a long holiday weekend. Those long weekends can be really hard, especially the ones that fall at the end of the month when the SNAP benefits have long run out. I got there as darkness fell, but right at the beginning of the event. And I noticed that down the hill from the roundabout at the school where they were handing out the food, there was a usually empty parking lot. And that night, at that moment, at the beginning of the event, that parking lot was lit up by hundreds of sets of headlights. Hundreds of cars just sitting there, idling in that parking lot. I asked the organizer of the event what was going on in that parking lot. Was that some other event happening that evening? Why all the cars? He told me the cars started pulling into that lot hours ago. They got wind we were handing out food, and they got here early to make sure that they didn't get left out. We have enough food for 300 people, and there were 300 cars in that lot before I even got here. That is what has happened during this pandemic. Millions of families all across this nation, through no fault of their own, have lost their jobs, have had their hours dramatically cut back. They had no savings because work doesn't pay in this country anymore. They spent everything they earned each month. And so when the economy collapsed virtually overnight in the spring, they got desperate really fast. And I want you to think about what it's really like on an hour-to-hour basis when you don't have enough money for food for your family. The decisions you have to make every single day are practically animalistic. Do you make your kids go hungry during the day when they need the most energy? Or do you skimp on dinner and force your kids to go to bed with hunger pangs? There are hundreds of thousands of mothers and fathers who right now, as I am speaking, are making that decision today. That's the reality of this pandemic. But here's another reality. Those 600 billionaires in this country, as it turns out, as a group, they lost nothing during this pandemic. No, exactly the opposite. They got richer. The wealthiest 600 Americans collectively added $1 trillion to their bank accounts. Let me say it again. The richest 600 Americans gained $1 trillion over the course of 2020. And let's be clear, that's not money that grew in their money tree orchards. Yeah, we're printing some more money these days, but wealth isn't far away from a zero-sum game still. And so when we allow for 600 people in the country to control 50% of the nation's wealth, that's coming out of your pocket. 600 people in a country of 328 million isn't a lot of people. But you know what's a smaller number than 600? 52. There are 52 Republicans in this chamber. 52 people who are going to have a decision to make about what to do in a country where millions are literally starving as we speak, while 600 billionaires count the $1 trillion in additional wealth that they have accumulated during this period of national calamity. The question before these 52 Senate Republicans is simple. It's simple. Should we give $2,000 to low and middle income Americans right now to help them survive this crisis? That's the decision Senate Republicans have to make right now. Time is running out. 600 billionaires got $1 trillion richer this year, and the question before Senate Republicans is this: are you willing to spend an amount equal to just half of that windfall to America's billionaires in order to help 160 million Americans? Because right now, the 52 Senate Republicans serving in this chamber are the only thing standing in the way of $2,000 being sent to 160 million of our neediest citizens. The House passed the bill authorizing the checks in a big bipartisan vote. It is hard to get 2/3 of the House of Representatives to agree on what time it is, but 2/3 of the House of Representatives voted for the $2,000 checks. President Trump supports the $2,000 checks, so he'll sign the bill if the Senate sends it to him. We can vote on the House bill today, like in a matter of hours, if Senate Republicans agree. So why isn't this happening? Why didn't Senator McConnell announce the schedule for the vote on the $2,000 checks bill? Why didn't he agree to Senator Schumer's request to bring it up for an immediate vote? Now, a lot of Republicans are saying they object to the payments because it costs too much and it's going to add too much to the deficit. Well, frankly, spare me the fake righteous indignation about the deficit all of a sudden. 3 years ago, these same deficit hawk Republicans passed a tax cut bill that before the pandemic hit had already added over $200 billion to the annual deficit. And that was a tax cut where 80% of the benefits went to the richest 1% of Americans. Warren Buffett wrote in his note to investors last year that the deficit financed tax cuts earned his empire $29 billion overnight. That windfall, Buffett noted, quote, did not come from anything we accomplished at Berkshire. So it's funny, deficits just didn't matter to the 52 when it was tax cuts to the 600 richest people in America.